get started here. What we're going to do is we'll go through the same presentation. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. We'll go through the same presentation we did last week. We're going to record this. We'll put it up on Vimeo as well for everybody to take a look at. But my hope is to leave about 20 minutes or so for Q&A. So that we can get through a bunch of questions that some of you people may have. One of the things you can do is if you look in your menu on your screen on the right hand side there, you'll see a tab for questions. Just type your questions in there and we will go through them as they come in. So with that, let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and get started. Oops. So we're going to talk today about just capturing gigapixel images with our technology. A little bit about me. I am the Director of Products and Training, and my name is Mike Franz. According to my marketing team, I have an extensive knowledge in photography and gigapixel imagery. That's kind of all relative, I think. As I mentioned last week, I meet so many people every week that are pushing the boundaries and are doing some absolutely amazing things with this technology, and I feel very fortunate to do what I do. I'm a photographer by trade. My current gear is a 5D2, a D700, and a little Canon S100. I do have 20 years of photography experience, and those include magazine editorial photography, commercial construction, portraits, landscape, fine art. And for any of you who have ever tried to make a living as a photographer, you'll pretty much photograph anything that needs it so that you can make some money. I have shot medium format as well. My last experience was with a Mamiya 645 and slide film, which was one of my favorite cameras to shoot with. So today's agenda, we are going to talk about the history of Gigapan, why you want to use it, what the system is, our hardware, how do you shoot Gigapan images, our Stitch software, our website and viewer, digital services, Gigatag, and then we'll take questions. So a little brief intro is that Gigapan offers, it's just an innovative technology system that spans our hardware, our software, our cloud-based viewing, tagging, and then sharing solutions. And gigapixels are billions of pixels, and gigapixels plus panorama is Gigapan, and that's kind of where we came up with our name. So there's over 100 billion digital images online, with at least 300 million that are added to Facebook daily. And that was from a statistic back in September of 2012. So over 6 months ago, it was 300 million images added to Facebook daily. And then you can get to the heart of every story with Gigapan. Again, we're in this age of this digital image explosion. You've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, you've got cell phone cameras. Sharing is really easy and it's instant. People are staying connected and sharing through images. And then 70% of all social media involves a photo. I mean, people love to share their stories. And then for any of you who are using your phones, there's Instagram, there's Snapseeds, there's all these photo applications that help add to the growth. And there's new sharing capabilities of Gigapans on Facebook now. For those of you who may not know, is that embedding the live viewer on your news feed is very, very easy. And there's directions on our Facebook page and our website how to do that. So Gigapan is a global technology. We provide zoomable high-resolution images like Google Earth, and they are 1,000 times the resolution of normal pictures. They're interactive and immersive digital images. So a little history about Gigapan is that we were established in 2008 as a spinoff between NASA, Carnegie Mellon University, and basically for high resolution panoramic images on Mars. The original Gigapan prototype and related software were designed for the Mars rover program to capture those high-res panos and be able to send them back to Earth and put them together so that scientists could have a better understanding of what they were looking at and then have a way to share these images with other scientists. We are headquartered in Portland, Oregon, and the whole point of founding Gigapan was just so that we could bring this technology to a broader audience. So who uses Gigapan? We have a huge market of people who are now starting to adopt this. Obviously, professional photographers. And like I said, education, science, research, NASA fits right into that. Web developers and interactive designers, professional sports teams. MLB is a huge client of ours. Consumer smartphone photographers, advertisers and media outlets, and then hospitality, travel, and tourism. Why people would want to use these images, I guess the biggest reasons are that it allows in-depth study and the exploration of images. It allows content providers, they can easily add high-resolution interactive images to their websites, and it really changes how people interact with the images. It allows you to spend more time on a site, which increases your web traffic and your page view time. And then as far as Gigapan, we're just a really turnkey, low-cost system and service. And then we also won a couple of awards back in 2010 from Popular Photography and American Photo. Again, this is kind of a list of some of our current users. And, this is really designed maybe to help get your head and your mind churning and ideas coming out of who you could target if you are a pro, and if you're not, and this is something that you just want to do as a hobby, maybe people that you can reach out to, or other places to connect with. And you can see we've got Major League Baseball and Facebook and Sports Illustrated and the Denver Post, Showtime, National Geographic, and these are all great clients that we really enjoy working with and have had such a wonderful time with this whole procedure. Now, many of you will probably recognize this image. This was the initial inauguration photo that was shot by David Bergman back in 2009. And there's a great story behind this image. David was there to shoot specifically for something else, but he got his hands on one of our Epics, which is just our basic unit that is for point and shoot cameras. He had a Canon G10 camera with him. He clamped it to the rail, had a basic understanding of picking your upper left and lower right, set it up, let it go, let it do its thing, and then he walked away and continued to do the rest of his shoot and get the images that he needed to get. When he came back, took the images, stitched them all together, this is what he ended up with. And from there on out, David has been hooked with our product. He is absolutely fantastic. We love working with him. He's so great. But the thing that's really neat about this is that it's the most popular image to date, with over 16 million views. And if you haven't seen it, you can go to our website. It is a fantastic image. And what's really impressive about this is that it wasn't shot with a digital SLR with a big 300 millimeter lens. It was shot with a Canon G10 advanced. Well, it's a point and shoot camera with, some manual adjustments to it. It's absolutely a great, fantastic image. This is an example of the image that used to be the largest image in the world. It is 272 gigapixels. It's the Shanghai skyline shot by Alfred Zhao. And this was shot with a 7D, a Canon 7D, a 400 millimeter lens, and a 2-time teleconverter. He started at sunup or daylight and finished just before sundown. And this is 12,000 images. Again, this was the largest image until about 3 or 4 months ago when another record was set with 320 gigapixels. What's impressive about this image is that being is that there were 12,000 images in there. Most computers can't really handle that amount of input. So it took the computers at Carnegie Mellon University to assist with the stitching of this image. And to give you an idea of how large this is that if you were to print this, it would be the equivalent of 7,000 billboards. So again, extremely impressive image as far as size goes. And you can see here that down in this little area right here is this little snapshot of this woman's red high heel shoe. Oh, I'm going to back up for a second, because the one thing I also love to point out is that in the middle of this image, I don't know if hopefully everybody can see my mouse. If you zoom into this area, it's a few floors down from the roof line. You'll be able to find a toothbrush on the windowsill. It's absolutely awesome. I love this image just for that fact alone. Another example is the 2012 Olympic opening ceremonies that were featured in Sports Illustrated. You can see the snapshot down here is the Queen of England. This was one of 8 images that was shot by David Bergman at the 2012 Olympics in London. And there's also volleyball, gymnastics, there's the soccer, there's swimming, there's the opening ceremonies, and then a few other ones that David shot that were absolutely fantastic and beautiful. And you can see all of those on Sports Illustrated's website and NBC as well. Now, this kind of brings me back to education and science, and we talked a little bit about National Geographic and NASA, and this is a great example of the collaboration between the two of them. This is the Space Shuttle Discovery flight deck interior. This is the only way that you can see this image the flight deck of the Discovery from this point forward. It's been sealed up now. John Brack went in from National Geographic and with the assistance of Susan Polton, and they put together this image. The other thing that really is impressive about this image that I love to talk about is the fact that this also was shot with a point and shoot camera. And John shot this with a actually beta version of our first model made, which was the Epic, as well as a Canon S100. It's about 600 images and it's a full 360. The thing that I love about this is you can see in this snapshot down here that you can zoom in underneath this driver's seat. Or at least that's at least what I call it. And you can see stamp dates from when this thing was put together. And you can see it's 1982. There's so much stuff in here that you can explore and that you can look at. It is absolutely awesome. National Geographic, if you go to their website, they actually have a tour that will guide you through and talk about specific things in the image, which is really great as far from an educational standpoint. Again, back to science, the Mars rover Curiosity, little self-portrait. We're very, very fortunate to have the relationship with Carnegie Mellon and NASA that we have. NASA is always uploading new images to our site of Mars. It's really great if you are into science or you're into exploration. It's just really amazing to be able to see the stuff that that comes off the red planet, and the fact that they put it on our site for the public to see and to share. It's really a great relationship that we are very grateful for. But again, you can see this is this little self-portrait. The only thing I think that's missing in here are those typical self-portraits you see people on Facebook take, where maybe they're missing some duck lips, the pucker face, or maybe a mirror in the background from the bathroom shot. This image is beautiful. I love this image. I'm a big fan of night photography. It's probably my favorite thing. And this is the Kaaba Mosque by Assam. And this was the most popular image in 2012. And what's really impressive about this is that it got 2 million views in just 2 weeks. And it all started out of a Twitter post that linked to our iOS viewer. Again, It's absolutely a magnificent image. It's so well done. It's so beautiful. It's under just under a gigapixel. I think it's about 0.85 gigapixels, but such a great image. So, like I said, Gigapan is a full solution. We are hardware, we're software, we are a website and viewer, and then we also offer digital services. We're a full ecosystem. The thing that we really pride ourselves on is that we do everything. We have hardware, we have viewers, we have Stitch, we have image and hosting platforms, we have mobile capture. And at the center of all of that is Gigapan. We really are, our goal is to be the epicenter of gigapixel imagery. We offer 3 different camera mounts. We offer the Epic 100, and the Epic Pro. So the Epic is, it's small, it's lightweight, it's really easy to use. It weighs just over 3 pounds. It works with most compact digital cameras. It's the most affordable robotic head that we offer, and it also offers a 360-degree panoramic range of motion. We also have the Epic 100, which is, it's a little bit taller, a little bit wider. It accommodates for a wider range of point and shoot digital cameras. The advanced point and shoots with the super zooms, you can fit your mirrorless cameras on there, your micro four thirds. It has an extendable metal plate on the tray where you see the camera mounted there that allows for a greater adjustment for perceived entrance pupil. Again, it's also got a greater elevation in the camera body or plate area for pitch. And then this also allows you to do multiple shutters. You can take up to 9 pictures at each location for HDR or other uses. And then we have kind of our flagship model, which is our Epic Pro, which is DSLR compatible. It's got a larger lens capability and camera supported, so it allows you to support lenses and cameras up to about 10 pounds. The one common question that I do get from people is, "Oh, is it limited to 10 pounds? Can we do more?" You can actually weight this thing more than 10 pounds. I know people consistently who do about 13. Where you run into potential problems is when you get onto a 90-degree tilt. If you have like a 300 2.8 and a digital SLR, typically those larger lenses have collar mounts, and what you want to do is just make sure that you're balanced. Where you start to give up flexibility or with that weight is that you don't get quite the same tilt that you would, with a 100mm lens and a full-size digital SLR. You can do a full 90 degrees, but with a larger lens, you can't do the full 90. So you eliminate the amount of tilt that you can have. But if you don't have something where you're going up to 70 degrees or something like that, going above the 10 pounds is doable. It also has a standard tripod mount and quick release that's included. It allows you to do exposure bracketing for HDR capture. It works with your camera's automatic exposure bracketing to capture multiple exposures per position. There's also mirror lockup, and then there's a time display that tells you how long it will take for you to capture your image. A couple of things just real quick. One about mirror lockup is we get a lot of people that ask about it. I don't use it. But then again, I don't shoot at 800mm equivalents most of the time. Typically, my sweet spot is a 100mm lens, a true 100. It's what I like to shoot at. For me personally, I've not noticed that mirror lockup makes a big difference in that, but some people do, and some people swear by mirror lockup. That's what they prefer to do. So setting up the Epic Pro is really very easy. You mount your camera in the quick release. You align the vertical center of the lens over the y-axis. which is centered on that rail, and then you align the horizon axis of the lens so it lines up with the x-axis, or those thumb screws. You'll notice on the front of the Epic Pro also that there's these two little raised marks that are in line also with those thumb screws. So that's kind of basic. Your first basic setup is getting it so the y-axis is centered and the x-axis is also centered. By centering the x-axis, basically all you're doing is adjusting, you raise and lower the down struts. So you loosen those thumb screws and you can raise the whole entire camera body and lens up and down for those to line up. The other thing you do is setting up the rail. And this is designed to adjust for your perceived entrance people. We actually have a new tutorial video that we're working on that should be done in the next 30 days that will give people a better idea of how to adjust for the perceived entrance people. But basically, there's a knob on the bottom. You mount your camera, and your first step is to just center the camera on there so that the mass is equally distributed. And then by pushing that rail forward and backward, you'll do a parallax or a no parallax adjustment. The best example I can give you is you find a near object. You find two stationary objects, one that's near and one that's further away. The near one is typically, depending on the lens you're using, roughly 5 feet to 10 feet away. And then the second one can be anywhere from 20 to 100 feet away. But the goal is to have those two objects line up. And then as you move your camera on the Pro back and forth from left to right, that those two objects stay in line. Setting the field of view. So this is the most common mistake that people have when they first get started. And the field of view is a setting that tells the Epic 100 and the Epic Pro essentially what your focal length is, so that it knows how many images to take once you pick your upper left and lower right. To set your field of view, the very first time you power up your Epic robotic mount out of the box, it's going to tell you that before taking a panorama, you have to set up your Gigapan's camera, and then you enter the setup now. It wants to know if you want to set your camera's field of view. You just press OK. You set the camera's zoom. If you're using a multifocal length lens, set your zoom to whatever your desired length is. So if you're using a 70 to 200 and you want to shoot it at 135, you set your focal length to 135 and then you press OK. The next step is to align the horizon with the top of the camera screen. It doesn't, the one thing I like to make clear is that it doesn't have to be the actual horizon. It just needs to be a stationary reference point. For example, we're using the top of this structure as our reference point. So you line the top of that structure up with the top of either live view or your viewfinder, and then you press OK. And then once that's set, it's going to ask you to align the horizon with the bottom of the camera screen. So you'll raise your camera up so that that same reference point lines up with the bottom of live view or your viewfinder, and then you press OK again, and that tells you now your field of view and it's set, and then you press OK, and again you're ready to move on to actually now taking one. The more you do these, the more you'll just remember what your field of view is. For example, I know that if I'm shooting with my 5D2 and I have a 50mm lens, that my field of view is 25 degrees. I know if I'm using a 100mm, it is about 13 degrees. I know if I shoot with a 300, it's about 4.6 degrees. So I can actually set my field of view without even having a camera on, just by knowing what my degrees are. So shooting a panorama is very, very simple, especially once you've got your field of view set. You simply just go into New Panorama, you press OK, you set your camera's zoom. You've already done that, so you press OK. Now you just move your camera to the upper left-hand corner of your pano, move it to the lower, and then you press OK, and then move it to the lower right and set it. Now, show panorama, you can either skip this step or you can show it. The thing about showing the panorama is I always recommend for people who are beginners, just get into the habit of showing the panorama, especially if you're taking something or taking a pano that has something with great varying heights to it, where you've got stuff that's low and you got stuff that's high. Best example I could give you is you can see this image. It's a city skyline. The highest point in that image is the top of the CN Tower. And I've seen people and myself make the mistake where you set your upper left, not really paying attention to what your tallest point is, and then realizing that when you go through show panorama, you've cut off buildings. So this is a great way for you to just double check your pano just to make sure that you're not cutting anything off. And if you do show the pano, then what happens is it goes to your upper left, and then you press OK, and it pans all the way across to the upper right so you can see what it's going to be in the picture. And then it pans down to the lower right, then it pans all the way over to the lower left, and then back to the center. And then once you're done, you can start the pano, and it'll start at the upper left and work its way down. Before it starts, it's going to run you through a quick checklist, and it's just going to ask you if your camera is on, which is a very important thing. It asks you if the balance is locked. What this is referring to is your white balance, not whether your camera's balanced. So when you shoot these panos, there's some things that you specifically want done. We recommend shooting in manual mode. We recommend having a fixed white balance, not auto white balance. You want a white balance that matches the scene so that there is consistency throughout all the images. Your exposure, you want to make sure that your exposure is locked. The exposure is basically, in a scene, there's going to be a bright, especially if you have a really contrasty scene, there's going to be things that are really bright and things that are dark. And you want to try and capture the best you can. So unless you're shooting HDR, you may end up with some clipping on your images on the dark end or on the high end, the light end of things. But you want to make sure that you have a consistent exposure throughout the images. And then you also want to make sure that you shoot in the same f-stop or aperture setting through the whole image. The other thing is that you want to make sure your focus is locked. We do not recommend manual or autofocus. We recommend you shoot in manual focus, and the reason is that especially if you're shooting something where there's not enough detail for the lens or for autofocus to lock onto, you'll end up missing images. And then there's nothing more frustrating than finishing a pano and realizing that maybe 5 or 6 images got missed because the focus didn't lock on. So once that's done, it'll ask you if your flash is off, and then you can begin your pano. Our Stitch software comes with the purchase of our product, and we offer 2 different Stitch softwares. There's our basic Stitch, which is free, and then our Stitch FX, which is an upgraded product. The Stitch FX allows for color adjustment, vignette correction, and some alignment capabilities. We also have Stitch 2.2 that we just launched that's beta, so I recommend that you give that a shot. There's some export options in there that have changed, which are really nice. Actually, you can downsample the image. You can export it as not just a TIFF or an Adobe RAW anymore, but you can actually do a PSD, a JPEG, which is just some nicer features that you can export to. Stitch and upload. We obviously offer the Stitch software that takes all the photos and combines them together, and then once you're done, you can upload them to gigapan.com, our community site, for everyone to see, which is free. For our Stitch software and upload, you need a Intel Mac or an Intel-based Mac or PC with at least 1 gig of RAM. More is better for stitching the photos. Obviously, the more powerful your computer, the less time required to stitch your panos. And then in order to upload to the site, the image must be at least 50 megapixels. So stitching, just getting started, there's a instruction card that comes with your Gigapan, your Epic 100 or Epic Pro, that talks about registering your Epic. downloading the Stitch software, and then how to create an account at gigapan.com. You can also download a 14-day trial of our Stitch software. And then, like I said, we have a new 2.2 beta Stitch that's out that you can download. Another thing on upload real quick that we get questions on is that do you have to upload to the website? You don't. If you don't want to upload these images, you can export them out as your TIFFs, your RAWs, your JPEGs, PSD files, and save them on your computer. I know that the law enforcement that we work with, a lot of them don't upload to our website because they have images that have sensitive information in them that they don't want general public being able to see or get to. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that you aren't required to upload to our website. You can actually just put them on your laptop or your computer and then go that route. You also have the ability to, when you do upload, to mark things as private. So if you have an image that maybe you're working on for a client that you don't want everybody to see, you can mark it as private, and then you have a private URL that you can give out to people. Oops, let me back up. I think I skipped our whole website there. There we go. Okay, so our website has over 100,000 gigapixel images, over 50,000 or 55,000 members, and we actually have 30 million viewers annually that come to our site. So there's a lot of traffic that comes through with lots of images and then a fantastic member base. The viewer itself, one of the things about the viewer is that you can embed images on any website. It's very similar to the iframe embed of YouTube. All embeds can be viewed from mobile devices. It supports 3 platforms, Java, Flash, and iOS. And then it gives you the ability to zoom in and explore all the high resolution content that these images offer. Some of the digital services we offer, Gigatag, printing, and then the embedded viewers. Gigatag is just a post-event marketing tool that extends in-person experience online by increasing customer engagement. Printing, we offer professional quality prints for public images and Gigatag images, and then our embed viewer, which is the viewer that I talked about that allows you to put it on any website. So Gigatag, the great thing about Gigatag is, again, is the post-event marketing tool that it gives you. It's got the ability to make images go viral. It has social media interaction. It's enhanced branding and marketing opportunities, and then monetization opportunities that are behind it as well. Again, these images with Gigatag, just the viral possibilities that are behind it. Social media, again, fans basically go in, tag themselves via Facebook. It posts to their wall, and then you end up with roughly another 130 people that it gets exposed to. You've got the ability for branding and marketing. You can surround the image with your logo or customization, customized information. And there's some examples that I have here in the following slides that I'll show you that. And then we also, the monetization opportunities where advertising with sponsors and then revenue share. One of the other things too, as far as these embedded viewers, is that again, I mentioned that they're viewable on all mobile devices, and then that was a relatively new thing for us, is device agnostic. And then you also got the ability to now make them full screen, which wasn't available before. So this is kind of an example of our viewer embedded for Major League Baseball. And you can see you've got our viewer here in the middle, but it's surrounded by the Florida Marlins branding. And then you can see the numbers in here, which are people in that area that have gone in and tagged themselves. Again, NCAA football. This is a great image by Bruce Ely, and this is the Civil War game between the Beavers and the Ducks that was done by the Oregonian. Again, this is the the newspaper for Oregon, the main one, and this is kind of an example of how they're using it from a what's the word? I guess the word I'm looking from a digital content. So this wasn't a print or anything like that. This was digital content that was on their site that allowed people to go back in and then spend time on the Oregonian site. You can see, like I said, you've got all these people who have gone in and tagged themselves. And this is a feature that can actually be turned off if you don't want to see these boxes. Another example from universities using this is the Ohio State University, which just did their graduation ceremony that, oddly enough, President Barack Obama spoke at. And he keeps showing up in a lot of our Gigapans. We've got his initial inauguration. We've got the most recent inauguration. We've got this one here. But this is a fantastic image and a great example of how a university can go back in and use this. Now they can go ahead and they can offer it for tagging. They can put it out there for print and then get revenue sharing off of it. Another example, the Boston Globe. So Lexington had its 300th anniversary, and they got everybody together in the town, put them all in one field, and did a image of it so people could go back in and tag themselves. And again, digital content that went out to the Boston Globe's website. Tower Hill Insurance. This was a holiday card mosaic that they did that had their clients on it, and a great, fantastic idea. So what you've got now is you've got this gigapixel mosaic image that their clients can go back in and tag themselves, and it's just a nice appreciation that they put together. And then it was viewable on our website with our GigaTag feature. And then we have, obviously, this is Carnival, and I'm sure most of you have probably heard about this. It's a little event they have every year down in Brazil. This was done by MPix down there, and it's a fantastic image. It's just great interaction that people go back in and see and get to re-experience this event. So some of our upcoming features we have that we'll be offering are scavenger hunts, 360 viewers. Currently, right now, you see we've got our hardware will take images in a 360, and when you stitch them together inside our stitch software, there's a in-stitch preview that does it in a 360 fashion. But our website, when it's uploaded, displays it flattens it out as a rectilinear image. So a 360 viewer is on our horizon. We're working very hard on that. We also have tours, games, and then some memberships that we'll be launching that will allow for pro photographers to have revenue sharing for prints and embeds and put themselves out for hire as well. This example that you see on this page is for MLB. And what's really, really impressive about this one is that they partnered with Scott's. And this was a preseason marketing tool that had it just got amazing response and great fan interaction. So Scott was the little guy right there. Their mascot was hidden within 5 different images, and you'd go on, and you had the ability to zoom in and find Scott. And once you found him, you were entered into the sweepstakes for a yard makeover. What was really impressive about this is that the images where it was easier to find Scott, fan interaction or the time that people would spend on the image was roughly 5 minutes. On the images where Scott was harder to find, people were spending an average of 19 minutes on the website, which is absolutely amazing. It is awesome to have people spending that much time on your site. The other thing that's neat about memberships that's really valuable, I think, to pros and to enterprise clients is the amount of views that we get. With 30 million views, if you're a pro photographer, I don't know how many people come to your site. If you've got your own personal website, I don't know how many people come to it on an annual basis, but my guess is that it's probably not 30 million people per year. So the great thing, again, memberships, you'll have exposure to those 30 million views. So we're going to go ahead and open it up for questions. This last image here is another one of some pro sports. This is the Portland Trailblazers against the Lakers. And you can zoom in on this and see some great things. There's a little bit too much Kobe on this court for me. Bruce did a great job with this one, with some, had some fun with getting about 6 different shots that had Kobe Bryant in there. And I'm glad that there aren't 6 Kobe Bryants out there on the basketball court. So let's go ahead and let's open it up for questions. All right. So Wendy Daniels, your question is, when is the manual for the Epic Pro going to be available? We actually have manuals for the Epic Pro. They're online at Gigapan.com, and they should be under the support section. You should be able to find them there. At this point, I think that the pro members are only viewable. I don't know if they're printable or not, or maybe they're just download as PDFs, but they are on our website. Let's see. Assam. Oh, Assam, thank you for being on this call. This is fantastic. It just says this is Assam from the creator of the Kaaba mosque image, and he couldn't have done it without our great product. It's an honor for his work to be showcased in this platform. And thank you for your nice comments. So I'm going to applaud just because, and I got Alicia in here from marketing. That was Assam. That was such an awesome image. And again, being a huge fan of night photography, I'm so grateful that you put that on our site. I'm so grateful that you use our product and that you've allowed us to show that off. You've deserved all the recognition you've got for that image. You probably deserve some more. And then, just let us know if you'd be interested in putting GigaTag on that image. If you are, feel free to send an email out to marketing@gigapan.com, and they can assist you with that. Fabio, looks like audio went out. I'm hoping that it's back now. I believe it is. I don't think we are experiencing any problems. We were recording this, so if you did miss out on anything in particular, feel free to, we'll have it up on the website here probably by end of day. Paul, I came in late, saw one slide that had Arca Swiss clamp related questions for a really wide lens, like the Canon 8 to 15 millimeter. Is there a plate and rail available from gigapan.com that allows us to use this kind of lens? Ideally, the plate and rail need to allow lens be far enough forward and the rail is not in the photo. Paul, great question. Matter of fact, there's a workaround for that currently. We don't offer a shorter rail, so there's a couple of options that you can do. Take a hacksaw and hack the end of that rail off. That's one option. And if that's an option that you don't like, which is okay, what I found to be successful is when you're using that 8 to 15 millimeter, and for I guess for those people who aren't clear, when you're using a wide angle or a fisheye lens like that, what happens is if you mount it normally, you catch the end of the rail in the bottom of the view, and you don't want that. It's something that you want to avoid. So what you can do, Paul, is you can actually flip the camera around so that it's facing the opposite direction. And then you also actually take the rail itself and flip the rail around. And so the camera is actually mounted on the front area, if that makes sense. If it doesn't, Paul, let me know, and I can take a picture for you and send it to you, and anybody else who I guess wants to see what that looks like. But the best thing to do is just flip the rail and the camera around, and you mount it. The camera's mounted on the front, but at that wide of an angle, using a fisheye, it doesn't pose a problem. The one thing I will tell you is that our Stitch software is not conducive to fisheye lenses. It does not work very well at all. I would recommend PTGUI or AutoPano Giga for that. So that, Paul, that was your first question, and then it looks like you got another one here. Are the uploaded images tiled when we export to a local folder? In short, does the export contain the web code and tile layers to allow zooming in? It does not. There's a couple of things. So if you're using our Stitch software, it saves a .gigapan file, which is that tiled image, and then you can open that .gigapan image inside of our Stitch software, and it'll load it back up, and you can view it from in there. So that's one thing. But if you're just exporting as a TIFF or a PSD or an Adobe RAW, it's not the tiled zoomable image. It's just a high-res final output image. Let's see. It looks like I have a question. I'm going to butcher the name here, and I sincerely apologize. Valjeko Gnostic, can we take aerial photos with Gigapan? It depends on what you're talking about mounting them to. I know that I've had a little experience with some things using UAVs, like a quadcopter or a helicopter. It can be done. The results are not the best. It is very difficult to do with an Epic Pro, but I've done it with Epics. There are people out there who have done it with tethered to like a kite and things like that, with a like a hot air type balloon. So you can do it. The problem is that with a super long telephoto zoom, the amount of movement in the air that happens, sometimes you end up with unsatisfactory images. I don't have anything that's a really great example of it, but if you get one, I would love to see it. All right, let's see. Bob Lawrence says, due to the amount of time needed to shoot a Gigapan, if shooting a landscape at sunset, does the rapidly changing light cause a problem in matching the lighting in the images? In other words, would the amount of light in the first shot be abnormally more than in the last images shot? This is a great question, Bob. There's a couple of things that you can do. And if you're shooting images like a sunset image, for example, you're probably not going to want to shoot using a 200 millimeter lens. I think you're going to end up with severe problems when you're doing that, because it's going to take so incredibly long to do that. So if I'm shooting something that is a sunset, I'm typically shooting at a shorter focal length, 100 millimeters or less. And depending on where the sun is, there's 4 different directions that our Epic product shoots. It shoots columns right, it shoots columns left, it shoots rows down, and it shoots rows up. And if I have a sunset or a sunrise and I'm facing, well, I guess let's see. If I'm shooting a sunset and I'm facing north, I'm probably going to shoot columns right, because I want the light to slowly or gradually fade as I get over to the left. And if I'm shooting it straight on where the sun is setting and I'm looking directly at it, I'm probably going to shoot rows down because I want to capture the sky continuously in those rows. The other thing I recommend is if you're using our Stitch software, what you would do is it allows for using a larger blending region. And if you do have those differences in between the images, between the first image and, like for rows, for example, the first shot, if you're doing a row, it's 10 wide. The difference between the first image in the first row and the first image in the second row, there's probably roughly a minute in between, so the light would change. And what you would want to do is use larger blending region that'll do a better job of blending those together. So hopefully that answers your question. Let's see. Fabio, to enjoy spherical images, does your website support the use of iPad given accelerometer? I'm not exactly sure what your question is, Fabio. I'm thinking that maybe you're thinking of if you hold the iPad up and you turn yourself rather than using your finger to scroll. It doesn't. As a matter of fact, we currently on our website we don't support spherical imagery. Again, that's the 360 that we're talking about that we're working on trying to get developed and available to use. 76 Gibby, do you plan to add remote control to the Gigapan Epic Pro? Ooh, this is a question that I like to dodge, but I'll give you an answer. We have something in the works that will probably exceed your expectations by far, and we are hoping for something that's a late Q3, early Q4 launch. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. All right, Fabio, I got audio's working fine. Oh, I saw him. Great news. So you would love to gigatag it. That's fantastic. Please email marketing@gigapan.com and we'll get you set up. And then any idea how soon we have camera lens combination matrix for setting up the no parallax for different lenses? Oh, Assam, this is the bane of my existence. How soon? Boy, here's our thoughts on this, Assam, is that there's so many different camera lens combinations and so many perceived, and with those different combinations, the perceived entrance pupil varies greatly. And so here's a couple of things that I can at least tell some of you as a rule of thumb. And if you're using anything like that's the focal equivalent of 200 millimeters or greater, it is probably a 95 to 99% chance that when you mount your camera and lens on the Epic Pro, that you will be pushed as far forward as you possibly can on there. And so, so that's first of all. Parallax or perceived entrance pupil, if you have everything that is equal distance away, Assam, let's take your image for example, where everything was pretty much the same distance away. Parallax or perceived entrance pupil adjustment is not as critical as it is if you have things that are near and far. If you're doing a image where you've got buildings that are close and mountains that are behind it that are far away, that you're trying to do the whole entire image, your parallax or perceived entrance pupil adjustment is much more crucial than if everything is same distance or same field away. It also becomes more and more crucial the lower you get with your focal length. When you drop below 50 millimeters, that's where it really starts to become more of an issue, where you want to make sure that it is that it's lined up. So I guess to answer your question, we are working on it. I'm pretty sure that where we are in our conversation is that we're going to get a foundation together, and then we're hoping to have something that's more open source for our user base, people like you to contribute to, where maybe because we don't get our hands on every single camera that's made. It's just not feasible for us from a financial standpoint to purchase every single camera that's out there. So we want to tap into our user base. Maybe you use a Nikon, maybe John uses a Canon, and but there's specific lenses that they're using. So we want to tap into that setting as well. So I hope that answers your question. How soon? I don't know. I would hope that within the next couple of months, we'll have something that's a base foundation for people to look Let's see. Do you have plan to? This is another one from Valjico, and I know I'm butchering your name. I'm so sorry. Do you have a plan to make a manual, for example, photography for dummies on how to make high resolution panos? It's not a bad idea. We have tutorial videos that are out there that you can look at. One of the things that we're also working on for those tutorials is translations at the bottom for anybody who doesn't speak English as a native language. So we're looking at translating those into Chinese, simplified Chinese, and Japanese, Arabic, and any other type of language that doesn't use Roman characters, so that they're a little more useful for people. But I'm wondering, are you talking, Valjeco, about just something that's in print that you can use? Is that what you're looking for? If so, go ahead and type a reply back in here. Are there published guidelines for using Gigapan to capture artwork for reproduction, including minimum artwork sizes, recommended lenses, distance, and lighting? Dwayne, thank you for that question. There are some people out there who do it, and I think we've featured them in some spotlights. And I think that it varies from photographer to photographer as far as what they use for lenses, what size of artwork they're gigapanning, the distances, the lighting. I would say that first and foremost, you want to obviously make sure that your lighting is consistent. And then depending on the artwork, if it's something that has brush strokes, one of the things you might want to look into, Dwayne, is focus stacking. And I don't know if you're familiar with what focus stacking is, but it's basically if you were doing a gigapixel image that had focus stacking, and let's say it's you're shooting a 5x4 grid, and your first image you shoot it at one focus depth, and then it readjusts, and then to a different focus depth, and then you basically smush all of those images together with a third-party software like Helicon Focus. There's a device out there that's called Promote Control, and anybody who's interested in HDR or focus stacking should probably write this down. It's called Promote Control. It's a device that plays really, really well with our product and makes your workflow a lot easier. You can do up to 120 focus depths at each location, and 45 brackets, HDR brackets. What's the best software to stitch HDR gigapans? This is by 76 Gibby. So here's how my workflow goes, and I can't speak for everybody's workflow, but for me, when I shoot HDR, I take those images and I do batch processing in Photomatics. And once I batch process those, I have 3 different outputs that I use from there. There's a tone mapped, there's fusion, and then there's a different one that I output. But you batch process all those images so that they're consistent, and then what you do is you stitch those final output images. So if you have 3 images that you're doing HDR with, and let's say it's -2, 0, and +2, HDR Soft's Photomatics program smushes those together and creates one file. You take that one file, and those are the ones that you end up stitching in Stitch software. And again, it's really whatever your personal preference is. I own PTGUI, I own AutoPano Giga, and I own, I own Microsoft Ice. I've tried Huggin. I own our Stitch software, and I use different ones for different things. PTGUI is fantastic. It does a great job, as well as AutoPano Giga. But the 3 most common ones I use are ours, PTGUI, and AutoPano Giga. Assam, what about training videos for time-lapse Gigapan? Ooh, that's a good one, Assam. Thank you. I will put that on our list of tutorials to work on. Um, Currently, I kind of think where we're going is that, just for everybody, so you all kind of understand where we're at, is that we're looking at doing the next one again is for perceived entrance pupil, or your no parallax adjustment. And then we're going to do another video that'll talk about Stitch and how that works, at least our Stitch software. And then I think after that, we will look at doing something that is that talks about time lapse gigapans. And then I think that about wraps us up. Um, Dwayne, I see your note here that you've done focus stacking. Awesome. Very good. So I was probably telling you stuff that you already knew, and I bet there's probably tons of things you could probably tell me that I don't know. So with that, I think that concludes us. That's 11 o'clock. And then I guess last but not least, let me share this with you. We just want to say thanks to all of you for attending. Again, want to apologize for last week's technical glitch. It was unfortunate. We feel horrible. But one of the things is that we're going to start doing these on a monthly basis. So watch for them on our website, watch for them on social media. I know that we want to make sure that we're giving you the content that you want. So if you have ideas for things that you would like us to talk about, you can send them to marketing at gigapan.com. You can post them on our social media. And if for any of you that have technical questions that go kind of above and beyond the basics, I'm going to go ahead and give out my personal email address. I did this last week and marketing looked at me like I was crazy, but I was very surprised. Everybody that got to me was extremely respectful of the questions they asked. They didn't, I wasn't bombarded with questions that people can look up and get on their own. So I'm confident in giving this out that if any of you need additional help or have additional questions, please, I'm available to answer those questions for you. And my email address is mike@gigapan.com. And then you can see here, we're happy to offer all of you a 20% discount on orders of any Gigapan hardware, software, or accessories that you purchase from gigapan.com. It's just Save 20 May. And again, I would like to thank everybody for attending. It doesn't look like I have any more questions, so we're going to wrap this up. I hope all of you have a wonderful day, and stay tuned for what comes next month. Thanks a lot.